Long before cling film and meal deals, the British sandwich was a small act of love, wrapped in grease-proof paper. It travelled down the pit, sat indented tins on factory floors, and waited on cold marble slabs for children home from school. The fillings your nan reached for in the 1950s were born of thrift, rationing, and a refusal to waste a single crumb, and almost all of them have quietly disappeared. Today we are counting down 25 British sandwiches your nan ate in the 1950s that vanished forever. Expect spreads you cannot buy now, fillings your children would never touch, and the taste of a Britain that fed itself on next to nothing. Let's begin with number 25. Number 25, mustard and cress sandwiches were the daintiest offering on the post-war tea table, often grown by your nan's own hand. A damp flannel on the kitchen windowsill, a scatter of seed, and within a week, a green fuzz rose toward the light, costing barely a penny. Snipped fine, peppered with salt, and pressed between thin slices of buttered bread with the crusts cut clean away, the cress brought a sharp, living freshness to a Sunday spread. Diaries from the early 1950s recall children watching the seedlings sprout, proud to harvest the filling for their own tea. It was a sandwich that spoke of patience and a garden in miniature. Yet as bagged salad and convenience reigned, the windowsill flannel vanished. Today, few would think to grow their own cress, and the peppery little sandwich has slipped almost entirely from memory. Number 24. Cucumber sandwiches sliced paper thin marked the moment a humble tea became something genteel. Your nan laid the cucumber on a board, salted it, and pressed the slices between cloths to draw out the water so the bread would never turn soggy. The skill was in the thinness, nearly translucent, so a stack of them weighed almost nothing on the plate. In 1953, a cucumber cost only a few pence in season, yet served on a doily, it lent the whole table an air of borrowed luxury. Oral histories recall the Women's Institute afternoons, the best china brought out, and the quiet competition over whose slices were finest. It was a sandwich of aspiration, of making do look like luxury. Today, the cucumber sandwich survives in hotels and on royal lawns, but the careful homemade version that once graced ordinary parlors has all but disappeared. Number 23. Tomato sandwiches with a heavy hand of salt carried the taste of late summer into the lunchbox. Your nan sliced ripe tomatoes from the allotment, laid them thick on buttered bread, and shook over so much salt that the juice ran pink into the crumb by the time the pit hooter sounded. A pound of tomatoes cost mere pence in August, and the glut from the greenhouse demanded eating. Children grumbled at the soggy middle, but devoured the salty, sweet edges all the same. Oral histories from terraced streets recall the smell of tomato vines on warm hands and the proud ritual of using one's own crop. Yet the soft, slippery tomato sandwich could not compete with sealed fillings that stayed crisp on a shelf. Once the allotment faded and shops sold tomatoes year-round, this fleeting taste of summer quietly left the table. Number 22. The sugar sandwich, or sugar butty, was the cheapest treat a tired mother could conjure when the biscuit tin stood empty. Your nan spread butter or margarine on white bread, scattered a spoonful of sugar across it, and pressed the slices together so the grains pressed into the spread and crunched between the teeth. It cost barely a farthing and silenced a hungry child in seconds. By the mid-1950s, the sugar butty was a fixture of working-class kitchens. A small sweetness in lean weeks. Diaries recall children licking stray grains from their fingers and begging for a second. Yet as sweets came off ration and snacks filled the shops, the idea of sugar on bread came to seem not thrifty, but alarming. Dentists frowned, tastes changed, and the once beloved sugar sandwich became a thing whispered about rather than made. Number 21. condensed milk sandwiches dripped sweetness onto the bread of a generation that knew sugar as a luxury. Your nan opened a tin of sweetened condensed milk, thick and pale gold, and spread it straight onto buttered slices, the milk oozing at the edges as the sandwich was lifted. A tin cost around 9p and lasted a week of small indulgences, far cheaper than jam. Children pressed the sticky bread to the roofs of their mouths, and oral histories recall the sheer luxury of that cloying sweetness after years of rationing. It was pudding and sandwich in a single bite. Yet as the nation grew richer and the dentist's warnings grew louder, the condensed milk sandwich slipped from favor. The tin remained in the cupboard for tea and toffee, but spread thick on bread it became a guilty secret of the past, a sweetness modern children would never know. Number 20. Lemon curd sandwiches brought a bright tartness to the tea tables of post-war Britain, often made from a jar your nan had bottled herself. The curd, glossy and yellow, was spread thick on white bread, its sharp citrus cutting through the richness of butter beneath. A jar of shop curd cost around $1, but many women made their own from eggs, sugar, butter, and the precious zest of a single lemon. Diaries recall the sandwiches packed for Sunday outings, the curd staining little fingers gold. It was a flavor that felt almost decadent in an age of plain fare. Yet as 1,000 fillings crowded the shops and sweet sandwiches fell from fashion, the lemon curd sandwich faded. The curd survives on toast and in tarts, but pressed between 2 slices of bread, it has become a rarity, remembered fondly by those who grew up on its zing. Number 19. Banana sandwiches were the height of exotic luxury for a generation that had grown up with the fruit rationed or absent altogether. When bananas returned freely to the greengrocer in the early 1950s, your nan mashed one with a fork, sometimes with a little sugar, and spread the soft sweetness across buttered bread. To a child who had never tasted one during the war, it was a marvel beyond compare. A hand of bananas cost a few pence, and the sandwich became a Sunday treat and a birthday indulgence. Oral histories recall the sheer wonder of that first banana, the sweetness mashed into bread to make it stretch. Yet as the fruit became ordinary and lunchboxes filled with crisps and chocolate bars, the mashed banana sandwich lost its magic. Today it lingers only as a nostalgic curiosity, its lost wonder hard for modern children to imagine. Number 18. Sandwich spread, that strange sweet relish of chopped vegetables in a thick salad cream base, was the convenient marvel of the 1950s kitchen. Your nan unscrewed a jar of Heinz, spread the chunky golden paste straight onto buttered bread, and a sandwich appeared in seconds with no chopping, no cooking, no fuss. A jar cost around $1 and lasted weeks in the larder. Children either loved its tangy sweetness or pulled faces at the gloopy texture with little middle ground. Oral histories recall it as the filling of choice for a quick tea, for picnics, for the harried mother with too much to do. It promised modern ease in a single jar. Yet as fresh fillings and exotic flavors crowded the supermarket shelves, sandwich spread came to seem old-fashioned and odd. It clings on in a few cupboards, but its glory days are long behind it. Number 17. Salad cream sandwiches turned a bottle of Tangy dressing into a meal when there was little else to hand. Your nan poured the sharp, vinegary cream straight onto bread, sometimes with a wilted lettuce leaf or a slice of tomato, sometimes with nothing at all but the cream itself. A bottle of Heinz salad cream cost around $1.50 and graced nearly every post-war table. Diaries recall the sharp tang waking up a plain sandwich, the way a few drops could make even bread and butter feel like a proper tea. It was thrift dressed up as flavor. Yet as mayonnaise crept onto British shelves and tastes turned creamier and milder, the assertive bite of salad cream fell from favor. The bottle survives in some fridges, but the sandwich built around it alone, once a staple of the lean week, has quietly vanished. Number 16. Marmite sandwiches divided the nation as fiercely then as they do now, a thin scrape of dark yeast extract that you either craved or could not abide. Your nan spread it sparingly, knowing a heavy hand turned the bread bitter and salty beyond eating, and pressed the slices together for a lunchbox that needed no refrigeration. A jar cost around $1 and lasted months, making it a thrifty mainstay. Oral histories recall the smell that filled the kitchen and the rich, savory depth that came from the brewing industry's leftovers. It was sold as a health food, packed with goodness for growing children. Marmite has never quite vanished, but the simple sandwich of bread, butter, and a thin, dark scrape, eaten daily by post-war children, has given way to a world of fillings, surviving now more as a breakfast spread than the everyday lunch it once was. Number 15. Bovril sandwiches carried the rich, beefy savor of a meat extract into the cold tin boxes of working men. Your nan spread the thick brown paste onto buttered bread, the smell of concentrated beef rising sharp and warm, a small comfort to a husband heading out into the dark. A jar cost around $1.50 and was prized for its strength, a little going a long way. Oral histories from mining and factory towns recall Bovril sandwiches packed for the long shift, savory and sustaining when meat itself was dear. It was the taste of warmth in a flask era. Yet as Bovril settled into its role as a hot drink for football terraces and winter nights, the sandwich faded from memory. Spread on bread, it now seems almost forgotten, a savory relic of the days when a beef jar fed a family's appetite for meat. Number 14. The crisp butty took a packet of potato crisps and crushed them between buttered bread for a sandwich that was pure, glorious crunch. Your nan, or more often the children themselves, tipped a bag of Smith's crisps onto the bread, salted from the little blue twist of paper inside, and pressed the slices down until they snapped. A packet cost just a few pence, and the crisp butty became the cheap, joyful treat of 1,000 childhoods. Oral histories recall the satisfying crackle, the way the soft bread and crunchy crisps made an odd, addictive pairing. It was a sandwich children made for themselves, a small rebellion of texture. Though the crisp butty survives in pockets of fond tradition, it has slipped from the everyday, dismissed now as junk upon junk, its simple, crunchy pleasure largely forgotten by a more careful age. Number 13. The chip butty turned a portion of chips into a doorstep sandwich that defined the northern Friday night. Your nan, or the chippy down the road, piled hot chips onto thickly buttered white bread, doused them in salt and malt vinegar, and pressed the lot together until the butter melted into the steaming potato. A bag of chips cost a few pence, and folded into bread it stretched a small supper into a feast that filled the hungriest belly. Oral histories recall the grease soaking through the bread, the vinegar tang, the sheer comforting heft of it after a cold walk home. It was carbohydrate upon carbohydrate, unapologetic and beloved. Though the chip butty still appears in chippies and on rugby terraces, the everyday homemade version, built from last night's chips on the kitchen table, has faded as fried food fell from favor and the family chip pan was packed away. Number 12. Bloater paste sandwiches spread the strong, smoky savor of cured herring across the bread of countless post-war teas. Your nan unscrewed a small glass pot of Shipham's bloater paste, the smell sharp and fishy, and spread the soft pink paste thin on buttered bread for a filling that cost mere pence and kept for weeks. A pot cost around 7 pence and was a larder staple, a way to bring fish to the table without the expense of fresh. Oral histories recall children wrinkling their noses at the pungent smell, while grandparents ate with relish, remembering when even this was a treat. It was thrift and the sea in a single jar. Yet as fresh and frozen fish became affordable, and tastes turned away from strong, cured flavors, bloater paste vanished from the shelves. Once a fixture of every kitchen, it is now a curiosity sought only in specialist shops. Number 11. Fish paste and salmon paste sandwiches brought a hint of the sea to tables that could rarely afford the real thing. Your nan spread the soft pink paste from its little glass pot onto buttered bread. The salmon variety prized above the cheaper sardine and crab for its faint, luxurious tang. A pot cost around 7p and stretched far, the perfect filling for picnics, lunchboxes, and the spread laid out for unexpected visitors. Oral histories recall the rows of Shipham's and Prince's pots in the larder, each a small promise of a quick tea. It was the taste of seaside aspiration on a working budget. Yet as fresh salmon dropped in price and convenience foods multiplied, the humble paste pot lost its place. It clings on in a few shops, but the everyday salmon paste sandwich, once the pride of the British picnic basket, has largely slipped away. Number 10. Tinned salmon and vinegar sandwiches stood as the proud centerpiece of the Sunday tea, a tin saved for best and opened with ceremony. Your nan tipped the pink salmon into a bowl, mashed it with a fork, bones and all, and dressed it with a sharp splash of malt vinegar before spreading it on buttered bread. A tin of John West cost around 2 shillings, dear enough that it appeared only on special occasions and high days. Oral histories recall the soft little bones crushed into the flesh, eaten for their goodness, and the vinegar tang that made the fish sing. It was the sandwich of celebration, of visitors and birthdays. Yet as fresh fish grew cheaper and the tin lost its status, the ritual faded. The tinned salmon sandwich survives in older kitchens, but the reverence that once surrounded it has gone. A small Sunday glory now forgotten. Number 9. Sardine sandwiches mashed a cheap tin of oily fish into a filling that fed a family for pennies. Your nan opened a tin of sardines in tomato sauce, tipped the contents onto bread, and crushed them down with a fork. The soft bones and rich oil pressed into the crumb. A tin cost around 5p, making it one of the thriftiest ways to bring fish to the table. Oral histories recall the strong smell that lingered in the kitchen and the tomato sauce staining the bread red at the edges. It was sustaining, full of goodness, and unmistakably the food of careful households. Children either loved the rich oiliness or fled the table at the smell. Yet as fresh and frozen fish became affordable and tastes grew milder, the strong, oily sardine sandwich fell from favor. Once a weekly staple, it now appears only rarely, its pungent thrift left behind. Number 8. Spam sandwiches carried the taste of wartime ingenuity well into the prosperous years that followed. Your nan sliced the pink tinned pork, fried it golden, or laid it cold straight from the tin, and pressed it between buttered bread with a smear of mustard or pickle. A tin cost around 1.50 shillings and stretched to feed several mouths, a reliable fallback when fresh meat was dear. Oral histories recall the salty, fatty richness of the meat and the way a single tin could rescue a lunchbox or a picnic. It was American largesse turned British staple. Yet as fresh meat grew cheaper and spam came to symbolize hard times and rationing, the tin slid down the social scale. The spam sandwich survives as a guilty nostalgia, mocked as often as it is loved, its everyday place at the table long surrendered to fresher fillings. Number 7. Luncheon. Meat sandwiches sliced a block of pink-pressed pork into the cheap, convenient filling of the working family's week. Your nan opened a tin, turned out the gelatinous loaf with its faint shimmer, and cut thick slices to lay on buttered bread, sometimes with a slick of brown sauce or a slice of tomato. A tin cost around $1 and lasted several teas, making it a thrifty mainstay before fridges were common. Oral histories recall the slippery texture, the salty bite, and the children who picked at the little squares of fat. It was meat made affordable, a small dignity on a tight budget. Yet as fresh sliced ham filled the supermarket chill cabinets, uniform and easy, the tinned loaf lost its purpose. Luncheon meat lingers on a few shelves, but the everyday sandwich built upon it has quietly faded from the British table. Number 6. Corned beef sandwiches turned a tin shipped from Argentina into the reliable filling of countless post-war lunches. Your nan worked the little key around the tin, eased out the dense pink block, and cut thick slices to press between buttered bread, often with a layer of pickle or thinly sliced onion. A tin cost around $1.50 and was a larder staple, insurance against the days when fresh meat ran short. Oral histories recall the sharp, salty tang and the squares of fat that flecked the meat, beloved by some and picked out by others. It was the global pantry made portable, the taste of trade and thrift. Yet as fresh meat became cheaper and ready fillings multiplied, the corned beef sandwich lost its everyday hold. It survives in hashes and a few fond lunchboxes, but the daily ritual has largely vanished. Number 5. Polony sandwiches sliced a length of bright pink Savoy-style sausage into the cheap, cheerful filling of the industrial north. Your nan bought the smooth, red-skinned polony by the inch from the butcher, peeled away its casing, and cut thin discs to lay on buttered bread, a filling that cost mere pence and asked for no cooking at all. By the 1950s, polony was a fixture of working-class teas, its mild, faintly smoky flavor and startling color a familiar sight on the plate. Oral histories from the Midlands and the North recall children fascinated by its pinkness, fathers eating it cold after a shift. It was processed meat at its most affordable. Yet polony could not survive the supermarket age, its regional character and short shelf life unsuited to national chains. As independent butchers closed, the pink sausage vanished, and with it, the humble sandwich it once filled. Number 4. Brawn sandwiches spread the cold, set jelly of a boiled pig's head across the bread of the thriftiest post-war households. Your nan, or the local butcher, simmered the head and trotters for hours, shredded the meat, and set it in its own savory jelly before slicing it thick and trembling onto buttered bread with a dab of mustard. A wedge cost just a few pence, and brawn made use of every last scrap the pig could offer. Oral histories recall the rich, porky flavor and the unsettling wobble of the jelly, beloved by grandfathers and refused outright by squeamish children. It was thrift at its most uncompromising. Nothing wasted, nothing wanting. Yet brawn could not survive the bright new aisles, its appearance and short life unsuited to the modern shopper. As the butchers who made it closed their doors, the brawn sandwich slipped almost entirely from British memory. Number 3. Potted meat sandwiches packed the leftovers of Sunday's joint into a sealed paste that carried a working man through his afternoon. Your nan minced the cold scraps fine, seasoned them with pepper and a hint of mace, pressed the paste into small ceramic pots, and sealed each with a layer of clarified butter to keep it through the week. By 1958, potted meats appeared in nearly 1 in 3 households, spread thick and salty on doorstep slices of bread. Oral histories recall the intense, concentrated flavor and the quiet pride of wasting nothing from the weekend roast, each family guarding its own blend of spice. It was thrift turned almost to art. Yet when supermarkets offered sealed packs of uniform sliced meat, the ceramic pots vanished from windowsills almost overnight, and the skill of potting, honed across generations, became suddenly unnecessary. Number 2. Ox tongue sandwiches sliced a cured and pressed tongue into the proud filling of the Sunday cold supper. Your nan, or the butcher, simmered the tongue for hours, peeled away the rough skin, and pressed the tender meat into a tin until it set firm enough to carve into thin pink slices for buttered bread. A pressed tongue was dear, 2 shillings or more, so the sandwich appeared only on high days and when company called. Oral histories recall the rich, beefy flavor unlike anything else on the table, served with a smear of mustard and a sense of occasion. It was a filling that looked like a feast, yet stretched across many teas. Yet as the butcher's art gave way to sealed packs of processed meat, the hand-pressed tongue faded. The tongue sandwich now survives only in memory, a lost taste of post-war celebration. And finally, in first place, the beef-dripping sandwich crowned them all as the humblest and most beloved of post-war fillings, the very taste of Sunday lingering into the week. Your nan saved every drop of fat from the roast, strained it through muslin, and let it set in a ceramic pot, the pale crust above and the rich brown jelly beneath. Spread thick on fresh white bread with a heavy pinch of salt, and crowned with a spoonful of that dark, savory jelly. It carried the memory of meat long after the joint was gone. It cost nothing at all, and oral histories recall children begging for the jelly bottom, fathers eating it before the dawn shift, the salty richness warming a cold morning. It was thrift transformed into pure comfort. Yet as health campaigns turned against fat in the 1970s, the dripping pot was emptied into the bin, and a sandwich that had fed a nation through its hardest years vanished from the table, surviving now only in the longest memories. Across all 25 entries, from the dainty mustard and cress that opened our list to the triumphant beef dripping at the very top, these forgotten British sandwiches tell a story of thrift, love, and a refusal to waste a single crumb. The common thread is resourcefulness, stretching a shilling and turning scraps into comfort wrapped in grease-proof paper. These were more than lunches. They were the taste of a generation that fed itself on next to nothing and found warmth in every bite. Which one did your nan make? Let me know in the comments.